Hi there. Welcome to the Raven's Call. I'm Eric Wordweaver Sjerven, Goldie of the Ridgar folk here in East Texas, and I'd like to welcome you to the channel. Welcome you to the show. This is a show where I ramble on about different heathen-related subjects, just kind of whatever strikes my fancy at the time, whatever lights my mind on fire. If you guys want to contact or anything, all of my information is down below. Please subscribe to the channel. Please hit the bell for notifications so you stay up to date. The more you interact with my channel, the more like my stuff you will see on your channel. There's a lot of people doing some really good stuff out there, and so you need to see it all. Take it all in. Don't just listen to one person, listen to everybody, and build your own interpretations on the world. And that leads me to the next part, my little UPG warning. This is, of course, my view on the world. This is my interpretation, so please do not think that this reflects heathenry as a whole. This only reflects me. This doesn't even reflect the rest of my tribe, per se. These are my own insights and my own viewpoints, so take that for what it is, and hope you guys enjoy. Now, without further ado, I'm going to jump in and talk about a subject that builds off of last week's. Last week we talked about Rokotru. If you haven't seen that video, I recommend you go back and watch it or listen to it, however it is that you consume these particular videos. And we're going to talk today specifically about Hell, Lady Hell. And this is a question that has been brought up to me across the ages. I've been at this a couple of decades now, and I've been asked numerous times what my stance on involving hell in ritual is, and I have for a long time struggled with, how I view Lady Hell. And part of it is because everybody counts her, because she's named in the sagas, count her amongst the goddesses. And I have a particular view that runs kind of counter to a lot of that, in that I do not see Hel as a goddess. I do not see her counted amongst the Asenur. Allow me to expound on that just a little bit, okay? Now, the gods and goddesses are of the tribe of the Aesir, and that is what establishes them as the gods of heathenry, the gods of Asatru. Now, I know there's Vanatru that worship the Vanir, though the only Vanir we really know anything particularly about are going to be Froi and Froya and Njord, of course, their father. We don't know a whole lot about the Vanir outside of that because there's not a lot that survived. The Aesir are mostly what we have the surviving literature on, and even that has been contaminated over the years, and so it's not like it's pure sources on any of that, and then we build from that and build our understandings. Now, within the stories that are passed down that describe to us the gods and goddesses, we are given the story of Hel and how Hel comes to Helheim. And I think there's some important bits in here as to how it plays out to my particular view. Keep in mind, this is my particular view. I'm not trying to talk down about anybody that sees it otherwise. I'm simply sharing a conversation point that I'm sure some people are going to counter. And that's fine. That's fine. I'd probably get some thumbs down on this video too, but it is what it is. I'm taking a risk putting it out there, but you guys seem to like the weird way my mind works, so let's try it. So, essentially, those that are taken into the tribe of the gods are seen as the gods and goddesses. There are, as I talked before in the Rokotru video, there's the tribe of the gods, the Aesir, and then the tribe of the Jotnar, there's the tribe of the Vanir. So there's multiple tribes, multiple races of individuals that exist within the sacred cosmology. And so our gods, being the gods of order, come in and apply order to the worlds and everything. Vanic gods seem to be tied to the kind of natural world, the spiritual world, more than necessarily the physical world that we as humans enjoy. And so there's a lot of tie over with magic and things like that. A lot of the magical sources that are brought into the Aesir are brought from Vanic sources, such as Froya, bringing in Sjerven, things like that. There are, of course, magical elements to the Aesir themselves. The Asenur themselves have got some specific gifts, but some of the things like Sjerven are typically seen as coming from the Vanir into the tribe, being brought in. These individuals, like Froya, who is a Vanir, she is brought into the tribe. She's made Asenur. She's accepted into the tribe and becomes one with the Aesir. And if you look at Skadi, who is of Jotun blood, Skadi is brought in through marriage to Njord and becomes Asenur. She becomes part of the tribe. And so she gains the rank of goddess in that she is tied to the tribe. I see the race of the gods, the race of the Jotun, the race of the Vanir, all being on the same kind of level as far as the planes of existence go. They're up there in the sacred realm, whereas we, in the mortals and all of the spirits and everything, exist down here in the profane world, which is not sacred. We're a creation of the sacred world. And so, we try to understand things as best we can from down here. And in the separation between the tribes, we come to Loki, the figure of Loki. And Loki, at least in the Scandinavian sources, I realize Loki is absent from a lot of the Anglo-Saxon sources and mainland sources, and the presence in some of the mainland sources is bleed over from Scandinavian sources that were reabsorbed into mainland later on, etc., etc., etc. You can go back and watch my video on Lokians to get a little bit of my view on that, but I'm not going to go too deeply into that because Loki's not the focus of this particular video. Understand that I do see Loki as an entity in the world of the sacred, and I have my particular viewpoints on Loki. But again, that's not what this video is about, okay? I will, however, point out in reference to Loki that Loki comes into the tribe and is brought into the tribe as blood brother to Odin and is made of the Aesir, even though he's of Jotun birth. He's Laufey's son. And so, as he comes in, he struggles to exist within the society. He has trouble integrating into the frith of the society. And ultimately, he ends up betraying that frith. And in betraying that frith, he makes of himself an outcast from that society. He makes it impossible for them to keep him around. That is because of his actions that ultimately betray frith on an increasing level of severity throughout the stories. And so, in the end, Loki is cast out as an outcast. But before he's cast out, Loki lies with Angerboda, who is a giantess, or Jotnar, who is known as the mother of monsters. And he lies with Angerboda, and from her are born Fenris, Jormungandr, and Lady Hel. Now, Lady Hel is said to be of both life and death. She is at one point beautiful and full of life, and her other half is blackened and dead. She exists as the in-between of life and death. Very metaphorical of the psychopomp role of the transition from life to death, from the physical living world to the spiritual world, removal of that life element into the realm of the dead, and serves as gatekeeper. We'll come to that here in a minute. So, she is born of Jotun and Jotun. Now, at the time that she was born, it's argued that she could have been brought into the tribe and accepted into the tribe, like we see with some of the naming ceremonies, wherein a father would take a child, or a chieftain would take a child, and sprinkle water on their head, give them a name, and therefore welcome them into their tribe, into their family. At that point, they're not a whole human until the soul has fully seated and they have been brought into the tribe. In this, when she is born, we come to Fenris, who is kept in Asgard under the watch of the gods, but not integrated into the tribe, more kept like a pet. So even though he stays in Asgard, he is still not necessarily of the gods. He is still an agent of chaos. He is still Jotnar. He is a monster. And he ultimately ends up being turned into the force that comes during Ragnarok, etc. So not about Fenris. Jormungandr is also not taken into the tribe. He's not even kept in Asgard. He is cast down into Midgard, where he lies encircling the globe, eating his own tail. And so he is tied to the oceans and the currents and encircles the earth. Then there's Hel. And Hel is cast down into the underworld. So you've got Fenris, who remains in the overworld. You've got Jormungandr, who is here in the mid-world. And then you've got hell, who is cast into the underworld. A monster is cast into each of these three worlds, and in that whole holy threes, sacred threes kind of thing, this is important in the storytelling element of elements from these three worlds rising up against the gods in all of creation, because this is the realm of order. The gods of order, agents of chaos, are cast into these three realms, these three layers, and ultimately rise up against the gods in times of Ragnarok as agents of chaos that are cast out because of the order that the gods create. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing. So Lady Hel was never brought into the tribe. She was cast out and tossed into the underworld, where she takes up the mantle of leadership, where she takes up the role. And I come to that specifically because, one, we talk about the fact that she's born Jotun of Jotun and is not ever integrated into the tribe through marriage or through actual ceremony of being accepted into the tribe. As a fact, she is presented to the tribe, and the tribe casts her into the underworld. So she is cast out by the tribe and is not brought in. And this comes to a specific point because we're talking about societal levels of the tribe as a social construct and not being accepted into that, not being given the mantle of goddess because she's not brought into the tribe of the gods. She is sent away to reside in the underworld, where she takes up leadership. Now, this is of particular note because when she is cast down into the underworld, and we're talking about societal differences. We're talking about the tribe of the gods as a societal construct. The tribe of the gods, the tribe of the Jotun, the tribe of the Vanir. These are separate social constructs. And so she's not brought into the tribe of the gods, and therefore is not given the mantle of goddess. She is not made part of that. Now, I say this because looking at a societal level, the society has influence over its members. If you look specifically to the story of Baldur's death, when Baldur dies and is slain by Hod, who is guided by Loki, which is ultimately the action that is the final straw, the betrayal of Frith, the taking of life within the tribe itself, that results in Loki being cast out as an outlaw from the tribe, which then gives rise to his return in Ragnarok. Of course, he's bound underneath the mountain with the serpent and his wife and the bowl, and bound by the entrails of his son. But aside from all of that, when Loki is cast out because of this, all right, Baldur dies. Baldur goes to Helheim, where he sits at feast. So even the gods are not immune to death. The gods are not immune to the underworld. They still end up there, as is evidenced by Baldur. Now, of course, it is said that Baldur could return if all creation weeps for him. And of course, Loki refuses to weep for him, and thus sentences, he's in the visage of an old woman, refuses to weep for Baldur, and sentences Baldur to the afterlife and denies him his rebirth. Again, betrayal of Frith within the tribe. So Baldur, of course, is sentenced to Helheim, and we've gone through all of that. And when Odin sends representation down to try and beseech Hel to release Baldur back to the realm of the living, he is given the whole that all of creation must weep for Baldur, for him to return. Hel has dominion over Helheim. She has taken dominion over Helheim and made it her domain. If Hel were of the gods, if Hel were part of the tribe would have influence over her. And therefore, this stipulation would not have been put into effect, because for Hel, it would have been better for Baldur to be alive and amongst the gods than it would have been for him to be kept in Helheim. She is covetous and she is greedy. She is she seeks control over all things, and ultimately takes control over all living things as all living things eventually die. She's hungry. She's that ravenous, not entropy, but that it's death. It is death. All things die and eventually come to the underworld. This is Hel's realm. And so she has taken dominion over that after having been cast down by the gods and goddesses. She's cast out of society, she sets up dominion in the underworld, and then she denies the return of one of the gods to the realm of the living when presented with a beseechment from Odin, Odin's vassal. And so, even when Odin comes down and speaks to Osiris, he must, to the Volva, for the Voluspa, Odin himself must ride to Hel. He must travel to Helheim, and he rends this seeress up from the dead. He pulls her forth and demands of her to answer his questions through magic and through force. And she cannot rest again until this is done, because Odin knows the runes to make the dead speak. It's through magic that he controls this. If Hel were of the tribe, he could simply beseech Hel to bring forth the seeress and to bid her to speak to him and to give him the story of the Voluspa or Baldur's Drömmar and all of this. And he doesn't have that power. Instead, he has to sneak into Helheim and steal the information the same way he sneaks into to Gunnlod's cave and steals the meat of poetry. Because in order to work for the betterment of his tribe, sometimes he has to do dark things or sneaky things in order to bring about the betterment of the Aesir. If Hel were of the Aesir, or at least allied with the Aesir, then Odin would not have had to do that. Okay? Now, the underworld exists, I believe, independent of Hel, because Hel is cast down in the underworld and takes up dominion. Now, a lot of people, the argument for worshipping Hel, or at least acknowledging Hel within ritual, is that Hel is the keeper of the underworld where our ancestors lay. However, contacting the ancestors doesn't necessitate a relationship with Hel necessarily, because Odin has exemplified this in the contact with the Volva, for the Voluspa, in that he rends her forth, he brings her across that barrier, and brings her to a point where he can interact with her. Now, he does this forcefully, but there are places and there are times where we have that contact nonetheless. When the veil between the spirit world and the physical world thins, we can still have that contact. This is a matter of the order of the worlds at play. It is simply there, and whether Hel likes it or not, we can contact our ancestors. Now, I point all this out because if all of this hinges on an acceptance to a certain extent of the Ragnarokian cycle. And in the Ragnarokian cycle, when Ragnarok comes, Hel raises the armies of the dead to ride on Naglfar, the ship built of dead men's fingernails, and sends them out where they will battle against the Aenir in the final battle on Vidgrid Plains. It's easy for me to say. And so she stands in opposition to the gods ultimately in the end. So at no point in time do we see evidence that Hel was ever actually accepted into the tribe of the gods and actually actively stands in opposition to the gods in the denial of Baldur, denial of his return, and in the times of Ragnarok. Now, in the denial of Baldur, she's simply exerting her own control over a situation. Hel would be the reason why we cannot bring dead ancestors back to life, even with magical elements. But she can't keep us from contacting them. She doesn't completely cut off the two realms. There is a connection between the two realms. It has to be there. Otherwise, how will we, when we die, enter Helheim? And she wants that because she's covetous. She's greedy. She wants all of the living in her realm because from a psychological standpoint, she's been cast out of the realm of the gods, and she seeks to covetously obtain all that is the gods' belonging, i.e. the physical realm and us. She wishes to bring us down into her realm. And we constantly fight against that through trying to stay alive. And of course, we speak across the boundaries and everything to our ancestors. We will ultimately end up in Hell's domain. Now, here's the thing. Hell's not evil, per se. She's not a force of evil by any means. She has been slighted in that she's been cast out by the gods and cast below, but she's not evil. She's not a baleful existence, except in the realm of Ragnarok. And even then, it is said that Loki is the one that leads that army over and drives that. So in that, there's familial tie between Hel and Loki, and that could be an element of obligation that she's living up to by releasing the dead to Loki in her anti-Einherjar force. So it's all speculation because, it's all my insights and things like that. Different people are going to have different interpretations on these things. But in essence, what I'm getting to here is that she was never brought into the society, and she stands apart as other from the society. I'm not even going to necessarily say that she was in opposition to the society of the Aesir, but that she is other. And in so being, I don't necessarily welcome her worship in my own rituals led by me, specifically because I see her as being not of the Aesir. I see her being as other. Now, to say that one could not work with her is a different story entirely. I simply don't feel that it's necessarily appropriate to count her amongst the goddesses and work her in with the Aesir. Just as we worship the Vetir of the world, and we venerate our ancestors, we maintain relationships with these entities. And we do have a relationship with Hel. We do, because eventually we will be in Hel's domain. It is what it is. It's all in the realm of creation, but as is created by the gods. But ultimately speaking, we will end up in Hel's domain. So it's not necessarily inappropriate for someone to have some kind of workings with Hel. I'm not necessarily going to look down on somebody who chooses to work with Hel on some kind of element and some kind of standalone thing, but she is other. So I don't see that as being working with the goddess Hel. I see working with the gods and goddesses, and then there's this otherness of working with Hel. And dealing with those chthonic elements and dealing with the element of death and all of that brings in an energy and a taint to things that I don't necessarily feel is always appropriate. When it comes to the underworld, I choose to interact directly with my ancestors. That's my connection to the underworld. There's a lot of thought, a lot of conversation still to be had about interacting with death and the guardian of death in Lady Hel. Because even then, Lady Hel's not death itself. She simply takes up dominion over the realm of the dead. Because before Hel, there was still death. There was still underworld. There was an underworld for Hel to be sent into. Helheim existed before Hel. It was the underworld, and when she was cast into the underworld and took up dominion, she gave it her name, just as anyone would say, this kingdom is now Eric's kingdom. This kingdom is now Hel's kingdom. It is Helheim. She has conquered Hel and taken it to herself, and covetously seeks out all of the living to enter her realm. So these are just insights that I have. This is part of the reason why I won't interact with Hel during ritual where I'm dealing with the sacred, because I do not feel it's appropriate, if that makes sense. Not necessarily to pass judgment, it's a judgment. I judge that it's inappropriate, but not to say cast aspersions or anything like that. Simply that in what I am trying to do with my relationship with the gods and goddesses, I do not feel her involvement would be appropriate. Similarly, as I feel that interacting with Loki in those kind of instances is inappropriate, because he was indeed cast out from the gods and goddesses as a betrayer of Frith. So that's that. This is all a huge tangent, and it doesn't necessarily come to a nice tight end. Hey, here's my point. This is what we're driving for. Because that's not what this is about. This is simply me rambling on about some elements of the cosmology that don't get talked about a whole lot. I mean, they do, but not necessarily in this context. And this is how I see things. So I wanted to share with you guys kind of my thoughts, my mind fire, and how I view things. And I was actually batting this particular idea around with a few other individuals before doing this video. And I wasn't entirely certain that I was gonna do the video in and of itself, but once I started talking, I kind of felt like, okay, this is something we can go with this. So I wanted to throw this out there. I wanted to see what you guys thought, and wanted to build from there as conversations and things like that. So please, in the comments, I know I'm going to get comments all over the spectrum on this one because this is such a controversial point, and it may even be a quote-unquote hashtag unpopular opinion. It's my opinion. It's me. And again, like I said, my views don't even necessarily reflect the rest of the views of my tribe. My individual tribe members will view this differently than I view it. This is simply my mind fire in the way that I see things. So make of that what you will. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Join in the conversation. Hit the comments down below. Join at Facebook at Word-Weaver Productions. And let us all know what your thoughts are, what your experiences are, and understand that I'm not denying the role that Hell plays. I am not trying to steal from her any of her power. I couldn't even begin to do that. She is an entity of that realm, of the sacred realm, just the same as the Aesir, the Vanir, and the Jotnar are, because she is Jotnar, and that's essentially what it comes down to. She's Jotnar. It's more of a societal interaction kind of thing, and looking specifically at some of the roles societally that we have in the stories played out. I could be wrong about all of this, but this is simply how I see things. So that being said, thank you guys. I appreciate it, and I appreciate whatever feedback you're going to give me. All right? Hang in there. I'll get back kind of to some more benign topics here coming up. But like I said, this is my mind fire. That's what I do. So thank you guys. Hail. See you next week. May your ancestors smile on you. Hi there. Wait, no. Okay. Let's try this again in 3, 2, 1. This is the video on Hell. I really don't know if I've got the guts to do this one, but we'll try. We'll see. This one may get scrapped. I don't know yet. We'll see. In 3, 2, 1. Let's jam. This is of particular note. Hang on. I gotta make sure that I have a visual thing, or I'll miss it and it'll go into the video, and I don't want that to happen because blah blah blah. Yeah, okay, now we're good. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that actually is probably the final straw that broke the camel's back, as it were. But anyway, pause. All right, here we're redacting the audio for confidentiality purposes, obviously. But so you can see some of the interruptions that I have. Here we go. Back to the audio. Hit Baldur's death. And he ends up, gods are not immune to all that. Okay, so. So, like I was saying, Baldur... Sorry, there was an interruption, so the edit and all of that. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that in the video. Edit that out. Okay. And once again, we go to redacted audio. Isn't that so much fun? Ha ha ha. Well, of course, you kind of got to do that. Because, you get these interruptions and you got to do what you got to do. That's just work. So, yeah, that's how things go here. But, yeah, this makes it incredibly difficult to do videos sometimes because, I got to actually work. This is what I get paid to do. So we kind of have to,
prioritize. So anyway, yeah, so much fun. Believe it or not, this actually ends here in just a second, but then I have to go and do a freaking, phone call right after. So hang on, here we go. Let's see what I have to say.
Interruptions. It's fine.
And we're back off screen yet again to redact the audio. So yeah, that's so much fun. These are the kind of things you guys don't get to see very often because I edit most of them out. And I thought, hey, you know what? I'll leave one of these in for a change just because it's kind of crazy how the interruptions go, and it's kind of nuts, but it's fun. I love doing it. It is what it is.
So back to the video. Okay. Put the microphone back on. Oh, I'm going to have to go through and do so many edits on this. I'm not even sure the accurate time on it anymore. All right, now, 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Now, as we said, all of the... scrap that. Back in 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Just as we worship the Vanir, not the Vanir. Pause. 3. Recenter. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This question. Everybody's curious about it. Everybody wants to know. And this ties into a video that I'm going to do here in the near future on... dang it. Let's do the Roka through video first. Okay. Save this. Use some of the outage for the other video. Okay. Cool. Here we go. We're going to jump ship. Going to go do the Roka through video, and then we're going to come back and do this one because it's kind of needed. Here we go. Do I really have the guts to do this one? I don't know. Screw it. Let's do it. 3, 2, 1. Let's jam.